Right now, as you watch this, a drilling rig taller than a 24-story building is operational in the heart of one of the planet's most desolate deserts. It stands in the Taklamakan Desert in northwestern China, a place where summer temperatures soar above 50 degrees Celsius and winter temperatures plummet below -30. There are no towns, no roads, only endless sand dunes stretching to the horizon. This colossal machine is methodically, meter by meter, penetrating the Earth's crust, forging a path where few in human history have ever ventured. The borehole, named Shendita K1, is designed to reach a staggering depth of 11,100 meters. That's deeper than commercial airplanes fly. It's deeper than Mount Everest if you were to invert it and drive it into the ground. China has embarked on a monumental endeavor to create one of the deepest man-made holes on Earth. And the question echoing across the globe is simple: why? Why invest billions of dollars to drill a hole in the rock in the middle of nowhere? The answer, as is often the case, is far more intricate and fascinating than it initially appears. Today, we'll explore what China is seeking at an 11-kilometer depth, why it unnerves some scientists while exhilarating others, and its profound implications for the future of all humankind. Prepare yourselves, because the narrative of ultra-deep drilling is a saga of ambition, setbacks, mystery, and science, interwoven so tightly that they are sometimes indistinguishable. To comprehend China's drive to drill into the Earth, we must first grasp what lies within, and this is where the truly astonishing begins. We, who have dispatched robots to Mars and captured images of black holes millions of light years away, still possess a remarkably incomplete understanding of what lies beneath our feet. Seriously, the distance from the Earth's surface to its core is approximately 6,370 kilometers. The deepest borehole ever drilled, the Kola Super Deep Borehole in Russia, reached 12,262 meters. This represents roughly 0.2% of the journey to the planet's center. We have, in essence, merely scratched the surface. If the Earth were an apple, we wouldn't have even breached the peel. All our knowledge of the planet's inner layers, its mantle, its outer and inner core, has been gleaned through indirect observation. Scientists analyze how seismic waves from earthquakes travel through the Earth's interior, constructing models based on changes in their speed and direction. It's akin to trying to understand the contents of a watermelon by tapping it and listening to the sound, without ever cutting it open. This method is functional, but it provides only a fuzzy picture. Direct access to deep-seated rocks, the ability to extract a sample from 10 kilometers down, place it on a laboratory bench, and study it, is invaluable. And this is precisely why China is delving so deep. However, China is not the first to attempt to peer into the Earth's depths. The race for depth commenced during the height of the Cold War, and it proved to be as dramatic as the space race. In 1961, mere weeks after Yuri Gagarin's historic flight, the Americans launched Project Mohole, an ambitious effort to drill through the ocean floor off Mexico's coast to reach the boundary between the Earth's crust and mantle, known as the Mohorovičić discontinuity. The concept was brilliant. Oceanic crust is considerably thinner than continental crust, measuring just 5 to 7 kilometers compared to 37 kilometers on land, making drilling through it seemingly easier. The project began with great enthusiasm. Initial test drills in 1961 successfully retrieved rock samples from beneath the ocean floor, generating global excitement. But then, the project became mired in bureaucracy, cost overruns, and political controversies. By 1966, Congress terminated funding, and Project Mohole never reached the mantle. The Soviet Union observed this failure with thinly veiled satisfaction. In 1970, coinciding with the centenary of Lenin's birth, drilling commenced on the Kola Peninsula for a borehole intended to be a testament to Soviet scientific prowess. The location was strategically chosen. The Kola Peninsula sits atop the Baltic Shield, one of the Earth's oldest crustal formations, where rocks up to 3 billion years old emerge at the surface. Scientists hoped that at a depth of 10 to 15 kilometers, the borehole would expose the mantle. The initial drilling phase proceeded smoothly. By 1979, the Kola Super Deep Borehole surpassed the record set by the American Baru Rogers Well in Oklahoma, penetrating beyond 9.5 kilometers. In 1983, the depth reached 12 kilometers, and Soviet geologists rejoiced. In the summer of 1984, at the International Geological Congress in Moscow, the USSR's Minister of Geology announced the achievement of 12,066 meters. This created a sensation. Delegates were flown to the Kola Peninsula, shown the drilling operation in action, and presented with core samples, cylindrical rock segments extracted from deep underground. But then, a nightmare ensued. In September 1984, after the Congress, drilling resumed. During the very first descent of the equipment, a 5-kilometer-long drill string became lodged and snapped, remaining permanently in the borehole. It became necessary to start anew from a depth of 7 kilometers, deviating to bypass the lost pipes. By 1990, a depth of 12,262 meters was achieved. This remains an absolute record, unsurpassed to this day. However, the most significant discoveries from the Kola super-deep borehole were not about records, but about what was found within. And these findings revolutionized established scientific understanding. Prior to drilling, geophysicists confidently predicted that a granitic layer would give way to a basaltic layer at a depth of 7 kilometers based on seismic data. Instead, the borehole traversed the same granites and gneisses, becoming progressively hotter and more fractured. The expected basaltic layer simply didn't materialize at that depth. Seismic models, trusted for decades, proved erroneous. Another shock was the temperature. Models had predicted a rock temperature of approximately 100 degrees Celsius at 12 kilometers. In reality, thermometers registered 180 degrees. This indicated that the heat flow from the Earth's interior in the Kola Peninsula was significantly more intense than previously assumed, and that the mantle boundary here lay much deeper than the 15 kilometers scientists had hoped for, or was structured differently than textbooks suggested. But the most astonishing discovery was water. At depths where the rocks should have been utterly dry, compressed into a solid mass by immense pressure without a single fissure, the borehole encountered hot, mineralized fluids. Water was ubiquitous, saturating cracks and pores at all depths. No one anticipated this. This water could not have migrated from the surface. The pressure at such depths would have prevented it from seeping downward. Therefore, it had been present from the outset, trapped within the rock since their formation billions of years ago. The Kola borehole demonstrated that the Earth's crust is not a dry monolith, but a fluid-saturated sponge. This fluid plays a crucial role in tectonic processes, heat transfer, and mineral formation. Speaking of minerals, at depths exceeding 9.5 kilometers, the borehole uncovered rocks with an unusually high gold content, up to 50 grams per ton, whereas an economically viable concentration is considered to be just 4 to 5 grams. Subsequently, the borehole became shrouded in legend. In 1989, a Finnish newspaper, with apparent irony, published an article claiming that Soviet scientists had recorded terrifying screams and moans at a depth of 12 kilometers, which they interpreted as sounds from hell. The article was published on April 1st, but an American television network took it seriously and disseminated it worldwide. The story grew with embellishments. Allegedly, a demonic entity escaped from the borehole. Drillers supposedly refused to work. Each new kilometer of depth was claimed to bring new misfortunes to the country. And when they began drilling the 13th kilometer, the Soviet Union disintegrated. Academician David Guberman, who led the project for many years, later recalled being asked at a UNESCO meeting what on earth they had unearthed, and he was at the Beroe Pasoch. On one hand, utter nonsense. On the other, strange noises were indeed recorded at depth. And in 1995, an unexplained explosion occurred, the cause of which was never determined. Naturally, there were no screams from hell. Acoustic instruments in boreholes record reflected waves from impulses generated by the instrument itself, not actual sound. But the legend proved more potent than the facts, and persists to this day, transforming the Kola super-deep borehole into one of the planet's most mythologized locations. And now, 30 years after the closure of the Kola project, China has decided to embark on a similar endeavor, but with different objectives and advanced technologies. On May 30, 2023, in the Taklamakan Desert within the Tarim Basin, a drilling rig specifically engineered for ultra-deep drilling began its operation. It is the world's first fully automated platform of its kind, 72 meters tall, with a top drive lifting capacity of 900 tons. On March 4, 2024, the borehole surpassed the 10,000-meter mark, a moment broadcast on state television. By February 2025, drilling concluded at a depth of 10,910 meters, making it the deepest vertical borehole in Asia and the second deepest in the world, after Kola. This feat took just over 580 days, with the final 910 meters requiring approximately 300 days. One of the project engineers likened drilling at such depths to steering a massive truck along two thin steel cables. So, why did China venture so deep? The first and most evident reason is oil and gas. The Tarim Basin is China's largest region for deep-seated hydrocarbons. Over 60% of all ultra-deep oil and gas reserves within mainland China are located here, beneath sedimentary rock layers exceeding 10 kilometers in thickness. China, second only to the United States in oil consumption, is the world's largest importer. Its reliance on Middle Eastern and Russian oil presents a strategic vulnerability that deeply concerns Beijing. Every barrel extracted domestically is a barrel that does not need to be purchased from abroad. And at depths exceeding 8 kilometers, as previous exploratory wells have indicated, oil and gas do exist in the Tarim Basin. The Shandita-1 well was intended to confirm whether commercially viable hydrocarbon reserves exist at depths of 10 kilometers and beyond. If so, this opens up an entirely new dimension of resource extraction for China, one that no other country has yet reached. But oil is merely the first layer of the answer. The second layer is geothermal energy. At a depth of 10 kilometers, rock temperatures exceed 200 degrees Celsius. This signifies that beneath every square kilometer of Earth's surface lies a colossal reservoir of heat. If this heat can be harnessed effectively by injecting cold water and drawing superheated steam, humanity could gain a virtually inexhaustible energy source, independent of weather, time of day, or political circumstances. This is not a solar panel that is useless at night, nor a wind turbine that stands idle in calm. It is the very heat of the planet, and it will not be depleted for billions of years. According to estimates by the International Energy Agency, Earth's geothermal resources at depths of 5 to 10 kilometers contain energy 50,000 times greater than all known reserves of oil and gas combined. The sole challenge is accessing this energy, and this is where ultra-deep drilling technologies become paramount. In November 2024, China completed drilling its deepest geothermal well, Fuxing Geothermal G1 on Hainan Island, to a depth of 5,200 meters. Penetrating a 250-million-year-old granite layer. This is part of a comprehensive program to exploit deep geothermal heat, and data from Shandita K1 directly feeds into this initiative. The third layer is pure science, and this is where things get particularly fascinating. The Shandita-1 well has traversed 13 continental strata, reaching Cretaceous period rocks dating back 66 to 145 million years, the era of dinosaurs. Every meter of core extracted from the borehole represents a page in Earth's geological history that cannot be read by any other means. The mineral composition, isotopic analysis, traces of ancient fluids sealed within microscopic rock pores. All of this allows for the reconstruction of tectonic processes, climatic changes, and even the evolution of life with a precision unattainable through surface observations. China has incorporated this borehole into its ambitious 4 Depths program: Deep Space, Deep Sea, Deep Earth, and Deep Blue, encompassing everything from lunar missions to submersibles. And here's what's noteworthy. Chinese scientists openly compare the significance of this borehole to the Chang'e lunar probe landing and the Fendouzhe submersible's deep-sea dive. For them, it's not merely a hole in the ground, it's a project of national prestige, a declaration of leadership in a field hitherto dominated by Russia and the West. But there is a fourth layer, one that is seldom discussed, yet is perhaps the most critical. China resides in one of the world's most seismically active regions. The Sichuan earthquake in 2008 claimed nearly 70,000 lives. The catastrophe occurred at a depth of approximately 19 kilometers in an area geologists knew very little about. Direct access to deep-seated rocks allows for the study of stresses within the Earth's crust, measurement of fluid temperature and pressure in fissures, and the installation of sensors capable of detecting earthquake precursors long before they manifest on the surface. This is not science fiction. Similar monitoring systems are already operational in Japan, albeit at significantly shallower depths. China aims to establish a deep Earth early warning system, and to achieve this, it needs to understand what is occurring at a depth of 10 kilometers not in theory, but in practice. Conspiracy theorists naturally could not ignore such a project. Online, theories have flourished, each more outlandish than the last. Some claim China is searching not for oil, but for secret subterranean bases of an ancient civilization predating humanity. Others are convinced the borehole is part of a geophysical weapon capable of provoking earthquakes in enemy territory. A third group links the project to the hollow earth theory, asserting that the Chinese are attempting to drill an entrance to an inner world inhabited by reptilians. A fourth group recalls the hellish sounds from the Kola super-deep borehole and believes the Chinese will encounter something similar, only worse. Even theories about the government seeking access to the legendary Shambhala, a mythical city purportedly hidden deep within Asia according to Tibetan mythology, have surfaced on Chinese forums. All of this, of course, bears no resemblance to reality, but it vividly illustrates the magnetic allure of penetrating the Earth's interior, a realm that intimidates humans no less than outer space. Reality, as always, is less spectacular but more awe-inspiring. Let's examine the actual challenges faced by the engineers drilling this borehole, because the difficulties of ultra-deep drilling represent a distinct genre of engineering nightmare. At a depth of 10 kilometers, rock temperatures exceed 200 degrees Celsius. This means standard steel drill pipes soften, electronic equipment fails, and the drilling fluid, a special liquid injected into the borehole for cooling and debris removal, begins to degrade. Subsurface pressure reaches 130 megapascals, equivalent to 1,300 atmospheres. If a fissure forms in the borehole wall, superheated fluid or gas can erupt upwards like a cannonball under this pressure, destroying all equipment. This is known as a blowout. In the oil industry, it is one of the most terrifying scenarios. A blowout was the cause of the Deepwater Horizon platform disaster in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. Which claimed 11 lives and resulted in the largest oil spill in history. But the primary challenge isn't pressure or temperature, but the very geometry of the borehole. At a depth of 10 kilometers, the bore diameter narrows to 20 to 22 centimeters, barely wider than a dinner plate. Meanwhile, the drill string hanging from the surface weighs hundreds of tons. Manipulating the drill bit at the end of this string is akin to trying to carve a pattern at the bottom of a well using a 10-kilometer-long needle. The slightest deviation, the slightest vibration, and the string becomes jammed. This is precisely what occurred at the Kola borehole in 1984, when 5 kilometers of pipe were permanently lost in the Earth's depths. The Chinese have learned from this experience and developed automated control systems that track the drill bit's position with millimeter precision. Their drilling rig automatically corrects its trajectory without waiting for operator commands. Yet, even with these technologies, the final 910 meters of the borehole took 300 days, nearly as long as the first 10,000 meters combined. There is another aspect to this project that warrants separate discussion, as it extends beyond China. We inhabit a planet whose internal structure we understand less intimately than the surface of Mars. This is not an exaggeration. We possess detailed maps of Martian topography with resolutions of a few meters, obtained from orbital spacecraft. In contrast, a map of Earth's subsurface at a depth of 10 kilometers is a collection of blurry patches based on indirect data. Each ultra-deep borehole is a window into the unknown, and what it reveals almost invariably deviates from predictions. The Kola borehole did not find the basaltic layer where it was expected. A German borehole in Bavaria, drilled to 9 kilometers, discovered hot brines that no one had suspected existed. Every time we delve deeper, the Earth presents surprises, and Shandida K1 has been no exception. Preliminary data suggests that the Tarim Basin, at a depth of 10 kilometers, is structured differently than models predicted, and there are indeed potential oil and gas reserves. But China has not stopped at a single borehole. In parallel with Shendita K1 in Xinjiang, drilling began in July 2023 for the Shendichuan K1 borehole in Sichuan province, with a similar project depth. Here, the objective is ultra-deep natural gas reserves, estimated to be billions of cubic meters. Furthermore, dozens of other ultra-deep boreholes are operational across the Tarim Basin, each yielding new data on the Earth's crustal structure. China is not merely drilling one hole, it is establishing a comprehensive network of deep Earth observatories that, over time, could evolve into an unparalleled system for monitoring the lithosphere. And now, we return to the question with which we began. Why is China drilling the deepest hole on Earth? The answer is all of it. Oil and gas to reduce import dependency, geothermal energy to power the economy without carbon emissions, scientific data to understand the planet we inhabit, seismic monitoring to predict earthquakes and save lives, and national prestige to demonstrate China's capacity for projects that for decades were achievable only by Cold War superpowers. It is not a single objective, but a spectrum of goals, each individually justifying the project's cost. But there is something more, and this is perhaps the most significant. Ultra-deep drilling is a technology that, in the 21st century, could become to Earth what space travel was to the 20th. Whoever controls the depth controls the resources. Oil, gas, rare earth metals, geothermal energy, even water. Kilometers below the surface lie reserves capable of sustaining civilization for centuries. The Kola Super Deep borehole discovered exceptionally rich mineral deposits at depths exceeding 9.5 kilometers, including gold in concentrations that evoke Alexei Tolstoy's novel The Garin Death Ray. What China will find at similar depths in the Tarim Basin remains unknown, but each core brought to the surface represents a potential discovery. The Kola Super Deep borehole now stands abandoned on the Kola Peninsula. The drilling rig is dismantled, the buildings are in ruins, and the borehole shaft is sealed with a metal cap secured by 12 bolts. The Soviet Union's most ambitious scientific project ended in ruins in the tundra. This is perhaps the most eloquent metaphor for imperial collapse imaginable. However, the data gathered from Kola continues to be studied and cited in scientific publications worldwide. The borehole is defunct, but the science it birthed lives on. China understands this, and therefore it is not merely repeating the Soviet experiment, it is learning from its lessons and advancing further. Automated drilling rigs, new materials for pipes that withstand 200 degrees Celsius, artificial intelligence systems for trajectory control. These are all technologies that Soviet drillers did not possess and could not have conceived. Time will tell whether China succeeds in breaking the Kola record and reaching the mantle. But even if it doesn't, even if the borehole stops at 11 kilometers, it will represent a window into a world we have yet to see. Today, we've journeyed from the Taklamakan Desert to the Kola Peninsula, from drilling bits to the cacophony of the abyss, from oil reserves to the very edge of Earth's crust. And the fundamental takeaway from this narrative is remarkably straightforward. We inhabit a world we barely comprehend. While we venture into the cosmos, engineer artificial intelligence, and manipulate genetic codes, we still struggle to bore a hole deeper than 12 kilometers into the very rock beneath our feet. Each ultra-deep well serves as a stark reminder of our limited understanding of the realm into which we were born. And every meter descended represents a stride towards uncovering the answers to questions humanity has pondered since the dawn of consciousness, when the first individual gazed not upwards at the celestial sphere, but downwards at the ground, and pondered what lies beneath. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe China will surpass the Kola Super Deep borehole's record? And be sure to subscribe. Numerous tales await, exploring how scientific endeavor continuously expands the horizons of what's achievable. Until next time.